Hi, I'm Chef Sharon and welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're going to be combining a couple different techniques and a couple of requests to make another simple meal. So today I'll be making pan-roasted pork tenderloin with a mustard pan sauce, baked potato, and steamed asparagus. Now one of the hardest things to do when you're cooking a meal is the timing. Trying to figure out what you should start when and how to make it all come together so it's ready at the same time. So one of the things that you should think about is what's going to take the longest to cook. And in this case, that's our baked potato. So I already have my oven preheated to 400 and put my potato in. Now another thing to think about is how much prep is there to do? How much knife work and any other things that you need to do to get the meal together. Now in this case, there's not a lot. I need to prep a bunch of asparagus and a few ingredients for the pan sauce and truss the pork. So those things can easily be done while other things are going on. The final thing you need to think about is actually what time do you want to eat. So you want to take that time, kind of look at how long it's going to take you to do everything you want to do and work backwards from that time, and there's your starting point. So those are the simple things that you can do to help bring your meal together at the same time. So let's get started. Alright. So I've got my saute pan heating up over medium-high, just like if you watched my video last week when I was starting the chicken breast. Now I'm going to add some olive oil, again, just enough to make a thin coat on the bottom of the pan. And while that heats, I've got my pork tenderloin here. Now I've already trussed this and seasoned it with salt and pepper. Now if you have any interest about learning about trussing, I'm going to try and post a short video about how I did that as well. So, oil's moving around nicely. I'm going to let it sit for just another few seconds. Alright. Let's check this and see if it's going to start sizzling. If it's not, I'm going to take the pork back out of the pan for a few seconds. So again, I'm going to put it in away from me. Oh, and there we have a nice sizzle. And we're just going to let it sit. Now while it's sitting, I'm going to season the other side with just salt and pepper. You could use any kind of a rub, herb rub, spice rub that you like on this. I'm just keeping it simple today. So now we're just going to let that sit and develop that crust on the first side. Okay, it's been a couple of minutes, and as you can see, lovely gold crust. It lifted off the pan with no problem. And I flipped it over. At this point, it is ready to go in the oven. Now this is a small pork tenderloin, and to get it to the proper temperature, which is 145 degrees, it's probably going to take 10 to 15 minutes in my oven. So I'm going to turn off my burner and get it in the oven. Now, the candle is not hot right now, so I can just lift it up. So I've set my oven timer for 10 minutes, and let's get started on prepping that asparagus. Prepping asparagus for steaming is relatively simple. My asparagus here, I'm guessing you would say, is probably average size. It's not enormous, it's not pencil thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one, and asparagus has kind of a woody end on it that you want to get rid of. Now if you have a lot of it, you can save those and make cream of asparagus soup, but mine will just be going in the compost because I don't have enough for that. What you want to do is hold on to the asparagus about in the middle and by the end, and give it a snap, and where it snaps off, you want to get rid of that. Now, to make it easy, you don't have to do that with every single one unless your asparagus are all different sizes. Mine are all about the same size, so I'm just going to line them up and take off the same amount approximately from each one. And I need a bigger cutting board right now, but that's okay. Alright. Now I'm going to get my pan ready for steaming. So I have my little nonstick saute pan here. I'm going to get it over medium heat, and I'm going to add a little bit of water. Put the lid on. So I have a few thin slices of lemon that I'm going to add to my water. These are not necessary, just lemon and asparagus goes really well together, and I have it handy. So now we're going to let that come up to a simmer. Alright, So my water is just barely coming up to a simmer. I put a little bit of salt in there, and I'm going to get my asparagus in, just in try to get them in an even layer. If you have a few too many, as I do, you just go back in and rearrange them after a few minutes. So we're going to let these have about 5 minutes, and then we'll check on them. In the meantime, I'm going to start prepping what I need for my pan sauce. For my pan sauce, I have some onion. I'm going to do a very fine little dice on a little bit of onion, only about 2 tablespoons. I have about 1/2 cup of chicken stock, about 1/4 cup of white wine. This is not necessary, but if you have it, it's good to use. Just a nice dry white wine, nothing expensive, just something that you like the taste of. And I have some whole grain mustard that I'm going to add. So I'm going to do a nice, very fine dice on my onion. And like I said, you only need about 2 tablespoons of this. So if you have a small piece of onion laying around, this is the perfect use for it. So really, that's all you need right there. It's been about 7 minutes, so let's give our asparagus a check. I'm going to turn that heat down just a little bit. You can see it's much brighter green than when we first started. And I'm just going to test here. The tip of my paring knife is going in fairly easily. I'm still meeting a little bit of resistance. So I'm going to turn that down to low. Let that go for a couple of more minutes. Let's check on our pork. Pork is temping about 130 degrees, so there's a few more minutes left to go, and then we'll bring everything together. So our asparagus is done. As you can see, it's changed color. When I do the tip of my knife, there's just a little bit of resistance, and then it goes right in and over. Now I've drained out the water, and what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of butter, because, well, why not? I've got some tongs here that are good for my non-stick pan. And I'm just going to top that. Oh, there's the timer for our pork. So I'm going to check that. I'll be right back. Pork is temping just under 145, so I've gone ahead and pulled it out of the oven. And what I'm going to do is take it out of the pan, make a spot here, and I'm going to put it over here on this cutting board to rest. We don't want to slice that right away for 2 reasons. One, carryover heat is going to get us up to that 145, and also if we were to cut it now, the juices would just run everywhere. So now we're going to work on our pan sauce. So I have my hot pan. You can see I have a towel over the handle here because I have a horrible habit of trying to remember that I've taken something hot out of the oven. So I'm going to put this back over to some low heat. You can see we have some lovely brown color here. That's going to go into our sauce. I'm going to start with my little bit of diced onion. I'm going to give it a little sprinkle of salt because in this case I want the juices to start coming out. And you can see already that just having the onion in here is starting to lift that color off the bottom of the pan. And it occurs to me that I'd rather have a different spatula. I think it's in the dishwasher. There it is. You know, we all have those favorite tools we like to use. Unfortunately, I ran the dishwasher this morning, so my favorite old wooden spatula, which you can see allows me to scrape, is ready to go. So we just want to cook these little pieces for just a couple of minutes. Aside from the color that we're bringing up from the bottom of the pan, we really don't want to put any color on this onion right now. Now, if you had a shallot, that would be great. You could add a little minced garlic here. Just be careful that it doesn't burn. A little red onion, really anything that you have, you can use to help build a pan sauce. So the next thing that I've got is my little bit of white wine. Like I said before, this is not strictly necessary, just adds a nice layer of flavor and a little acidity to your sauce. So I'm going to pour this in. And that is going to help us get the rest of the brown off the pan. And I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit because I want this to simmer and let the alcohol cook off. If you didn't have any wine, you could add at the end a nice squeeze of fresh lemon or even a little bit of vinegar just to add a little bit of acidity and bring some balance to your sauce. And this type of sauce you can make with any kind of meat that you have seared in a pan and gotten some lovely brown fond. Chicken, beef. If you were making beef, you might want to use red wine instead of white. But this exact sauce would go really well with chicken. Now you can tell when you've gotten all the, or most of the alcohol burned out of your sauce by smelling. When you first pour that in, you're going to get, if you put your head over the pan, you're going to get a big hit of, you'll be able to feel it burn in your nose. But it only takes this small amount. It only takes just a minute or two to burn that alcohol away. And I'm going to let that reduce for just another minute or two just to concentrate the liquid. All right, I've let this cook down, so now I have maybe just a couple tablespoons of the wine left in there. So now I'm going to add my chicken stock, and this is about a half a cup. And again, I want to make sure my heat's up higher because I want to simmer this down, reduce it, and let it concentrate. So again, going to let that go for a couple of minutes and then we'll check on it. It's been about 4 minutes and my sauce has reduced quite a bit. I'm starting to see quite a few bubbles across the surface, which is telling me it's reducing at a rapid rate now. So I'm going to add a little bit of my whole grain mustard. Mustard and pork goes really well together, so I'm just going to add a nice heaping spoon. Get that mixed in, and I'm going to turn it off because I really don't want to reduce it any more than this. Now we're not looking for a gravy here. This is not going to be super thick, but one thing we can do to add a little thickness to it is I have a little bit of cold butter here. Now my pan's off, sauce isn't boiling, so I'm going to put in a couple of pieces and you just swirl it until it melts in. This is going to do a few things. It's going to add richness, obviously. It's butter. It's also going to help thicken the sauce a little bit, and it's going to give it a lovely shine. Also, while we were waiting for the sauce to reduce, I tested my baked potato, stuck a skewer in it. It's done, so I turned off the oven. It's just staying warm in there. It's almost melted in. And I have a tasting spoon here. I'm going to give this a taste and see if I need to adjust any seasoning. Now my chicken stock had some salt in it. We salted the onions a little bit at the beginning. So I'm just going to give this a little taste. Oh, that's lovely. You get a nice mustard flavor. The flavors are a bit strong, but they're going to go on the pork. So it's really all going to come together. All right, so there you go. We have roast pork, lovely pan sauce, steamed asparagus with butter, and a baked potato. All seems kind of fancy, but really came together in, I would say all told, under an hour. I got this all done. So thanks for joining me back in my kitchen. I'll see you next time, and if you have any questions or requests, please let me know. Bye!